Eat, sleep, bet, repeat. That's how we get down here on the opening line at elitesportsbetting.com. I'm your host, Paulie, and I'm joined here by Frank to talk a little bit of NBA action here on Wednesday. Hey, Frank, how's it going?
What's up, Paulie?
Nothing much. Just another big slate here full of injuries as we've had every
Yep,
day
big
this year.
big slate, a lot of injuries. That's the whole season so far, isn't it?
Yes, it is. So, without wasting any time, let's dig into one of the first games here. We got Detroit visiting Boston. The only key injury to note here, I believe, is Daniel Tice for Boston is questionable. The current line is sitting out there, I believe, is -10 with a 218 total. Do you have any action on this game?
Yeah, I lean towards the over, and that's with Tice out. Unfortunately, he's like a 1.5 for me, like a 1.5 defensive player, 1.5 points. So that's gonna get sucked away on my numbers. That edge will if he's in. So if he gets marked out, I do like the under, but it's kind of a wait and see game there. From a spread perspective, I got it at 11, so no action there. But I've got it at almost 220 on the total, 219.7. So if I can see that he's out, I'm going to play the over. But it's just kind of wait and see. I think he's been out, right? He hasn't played much at all.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he sat out last game. I'd probably give it like a coin flip of whether he plays this game. Probably leaning towards not playing though because they're playing against, at home
They're
against the Ravaged
10-point
Detroit team.
favorites.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do like the over, but if he's in, I don't like it. So and I don't think the number will move much. If he comes in,
Yeah.
if he's marked in, I don't know if the market's going to react much. But for me, I see like a 1.5 point difference. So I'm going to wait and see. And if he's out, I'm certainly going to play the over. It looks like it's getting hit a little bit towards the under too, which I like, unless they're just anticipating he's playing, of course.
Gotcha. Yeah, the only thing I like in this game here is actually using Boston as part of like a money line parlay with a couple of the games. So Boston's been 16 and I think we've 16-3 at home this year, and they're playing against a Detroit team which is just completely lost. We've seen that last couple of games for Detroit, just sloppy turnovers, really not sure what to do on offense. Andre Drummond just looks like he doesn't want to be there. I mean, they sat him out, I think, last game. Sat him out the entire, last 16, 17 minutes of the game when they were trying to make a rally. And I think played Christian Wood instead just because he just was getting absolutely dominated and gave no effort. So give me Boston as part of a parlay with a couple of the teams.
Yeah, and Wood is questionable today, I think. And I actually have him as like a +2 player. So if he ends – and I have him in, and I've got the line at 11. So if he ends up out as well and Tease is in, then I really do like Boston. I'm probably not going to lay 10 anyway, but if you're looking to moneyline parlay, I do agree with that side in this game.
Yeah, and this is also a good spot to where if for some reason Boston comes out a little sluggish and the live line happens to drop lower, let's say then lower than maybe 7, I would definitely be willing to hit it just because I think this game ends up closer to double digits than if it's a close game because as we know, if it's a close game and there's fouls towards the end, most likely it's going to hit higher than like 6 or 7. So definitely keep an eye on that live if you don't play it for you.
Yeah, and it has gotten bet up a little bit from 9.5 too. So
Correct. Yep.
definitely
Yep.
seems like the right side here.
All right, let's move to the next game. We got Brooklyn on a back-to-back playing at Philadelphia. The main injury note here is that Kyrie Irving has said that he's going to play on the back-to-back here. And the current line out in the market is over-under, seeing anywhere from 219 to 220, with a line between 7.5 and 8. What are your thoughts on those numbers, Frank?
Yeah, 219.5 for me on the total and 8 on the spread. So I really have absolutely nothing. Of course, I put Kyrie in, but it just if you did want to bet the game it's just say I did have an edge. I would want to wait to see if Irving's going to play and if he's going to get full minutes. Just that.
Yeah, it's one of those where I was kind of surprised when I heard that he was going to play back-to-back considering he was out for so long. So, I'm wondering if maybe there's going to be like a minutes restriction or something possibly.
Yeah. Yeah, and they're going to lose this game without him. I think
Yeah.
they certainly stand a better chance with him, but as 8-point dogs on a back-to-back on the road. It just seems like he's either, they're either going to get behind and he's just going to sit, or he may not play at all. So I'm avoiding the game, but I don't have an edge anyway.
And then one other item of note for the game here is Brooklyn is actually, in my huddle, is ranked dead last in second half play and efficiency.
Wow.
So, and Philadelphia is 13th, whereas Brooklyn is actually 11th in the first half. And they've been in a little bit of tailspin of late. So if for some reason they happen to start off hot, this is another good spot for a live bet here, because if, let's say, Brooklyn gets up 6 or 7 points in the first half at some point, that live line is going to be dropping to -3, -4, and I will definitely be playing it if it gets to that point.
And you're talking about, like, said that, if Kyrie's in and they're competing, this could be a situation where there's a chance he sits out the entire third quarter or something like that and shows up halfway through the fourth.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't surprise me to see them do something like that if it's close and they're like, okay, well, we can sit him for a quarter and maybe hang and then put him in, 3/4 of the way through the fourth quarter and with the starters or something, and see if we can make a run or keep a run, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah, I'd be hard pressed to see him more than about maybe 20 to 25 minutes today. I'm not the back.
Yeah, I agree.
All right, next game we have the Spurs at the Miami Heat. Line here is 222 on the total and between 5 and 5.5 on the spread. What do you think about those numbers, Frank?
Yeah, I've got it at 5.5, bang on, but I've got it at 217 on the total. Winslow's out, and just get him up real quick. He's definitely a little bit of an under player anyway, but I still like it here. I have been playing a lot of Spurs overs as of late, which seems strange to me. So I'm looking into this now, but I've got the game closer to, what did I say, 217.
Yeah.
So pretty decent edge. I'd say above average edge for me in this one. Let me just grab these numbers real quick. So if I look at Miami over the last week, they're ranked about 21st in pace. They're playing just a little bit slower than usual, and the Spurs are playing a little bit slower than usual. So that's basically where the discrepancy comes from. They're both playing just slightly under their normal pace, and like I said, maybe with the overs that I have been playing and seeing, perhaps the market's starting to adjust a little bit. It's 221.5, and I've got it at just over 217. So like I said, pretty normal edge there for me. The best that I could do, just adjusting minutes and playing with it, was like 218.5. So I'll have an under up there in the bet package.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing I have for this game here is I'm playing Miami in the first half here. Miami's a third-ranked first half team and 20th ranked second half team. Meanwhile, San Antonio is kind of neutral there, being 17th in both the first and second half. So getting Miami at -2.5 in the first half there, a little small play there. And then also putting Miami in as part of the parlay, that they're 17-1 at home. And I just trust them a little bit more, especially in closing time, than the Spurs team, which is disappointed all year.
Yeah, and I'm just looking at some of these games here, and the Heat and the Spurs have been just shooting the lights out, it seems like, as of late, because like I said, their pace hasn't really picked up. So I would imagine their 3-point shooting has gone up. The Spurs scored 126 points, 129 points, 121 points, and then 105. And if you look at the Heat, 121, 113, 122, 122. So it's a little bit unlike both these teams to do that. And considering the pace hasn't picked up, that kind of tells me that the shooting ability has. But that's more of a random fluctuation than things like pace, right? So I would expect both of their shooting over the next few games to regress, and maybe we can get some value on some unders on both of these teams.
Sounds good. All right, moving on to the next game. We have the Washington Wizards at the Chicago Bulls. The current line there is Bulls -4.5 with a total of 227 or 227.5, depending on the book. What do you think about those numbers?
Yeah, this game's a little bit everywhere. Like for reference, I use a couple different like advanced metrics, and a bunch of different sources, and I've got the line all over the place. Anywhere from pick 'em to 7. So I'm going to stay away from the spread. There's no real crazy injuries or anything, but officially I've got the game at 3 and 225. So it's another game where I do like the under. There's no real, like I said, there's no real injuries to speak of. I know that you've been riding a lot of Bulls unders here in the first half or first quarters, and I'm assuming you're going with that again. But Chicago has played remarkably slower as of late. The last 4 games are playing at 14.5 seconds per possession compared to 13.8 on the season. So that's where my under edge is coming from. I imagine that Washington's still pretty banged up. They haven't had a full team all year. So I'm going to ride the under with them. Again, I've been trending that way. I think you've been trending that way. So I'm just going to keep firing on them.
Yeah, with the first quarter under for the Bulls, I don't say it's a near auto bet for me, but I play 90% of the time the Bulls are playing, I'm hitting that under. So today, I haven't seen the first quarter line yet, but I know that the first half was at 116.5. So I'm assuming the first quarter is going to be like 58, 59 points, which is an extremely high number.
Yeah.
Considering the total is sitting there at 227, right? You'd expect it more like 56, 57. So when we're getting a number that's more than a quarter of the total for the game, and you add the fact that the Bulls have hit the under in over 75% of the first quarters, and Washington, surprisingly, even though they're a high-scoring team, hit the unders in 57% of their first quarters. So, and like we talked about, the pace for Chicago, a little bit slower of late. I just have to keep playing it because the market's just not adjusting to this. We see it every year. There's 1 or 2 bets on these, derivative bets of quarters or even halves, to where the books just do not catch on the entire year. And I'll just keep playing. I'll keep firing the same bet, and we'll keep hitting it at 75% and collecting the money.
Yeah, and that difference, of, like I said, from 13.8 to 14.5 seconds, it doesn't seem like a lot. Like, oh, it's a little more than a half second longer. But when you add up all the possessions in a basketball game, that's a big difference, right? That's a lot of scoring opportunities, not only taken from them, but taken from Washington when they get every 2 possessions, they lose another second of game time, right? So you're adding that up over in a very, long period of time, of course, a basketball game. It adds up, so you get a couple point edge there.
Yep, definitely. Okay, moving on to the next game, we have the Indiana Pacers at the Minnesota Timberwolves. The line for this game is off the board a lot of places currently, but I do see some spots have it up at 218.5 the total with a spread of 2.5 point favorite for Indiana. Is there any edge on those numbers, Frank?
So the way that this looks and the way that I can figure it with Sabonis being questionable and Towns being questionable, it looks like Sabonis is going to play and Towns is going to play, not because I have information, but just from me adjusting numbers to get it to where it is. If I mark Towns out and Sabonis in, I get like 3 and 217.5. If Towns is in, that number is going to crash. It just doesn't look like he's gonna play. I mean, he's like a +4 player, so it doesn't look like he's gonna play. But if he were, they would be small favorites, I think, assuming full minutes and all that. He hasn't really played much at all lately, and he's just been in and out. So I don't really see I can't really square it. Towns being in and them being dogs, at least decent sized dogs here. So I'm gonna avoid the game. If Towns gets announced in, I think you could play the +2 or +2.5. But you got to be quick to it, and it's just not looking like he's going to play because they're opening it up like he's not playing.
Yeah, with that line there's no value for me either. So we can go ahead and move to the next game, which is the Toronto Raptors at the Oklahoma City Thunder. Line for the game is 2-point favorite for Oklahoma City with an over-under of 213, 213.5, depending on the book. Anything on that, Frank?
Yeah, Gasol's back. Noel's out still. I think he's been out. Not that he's a huge factor, but with Gasol back, I've got the game lined at 1.5, so that's pretty spot on. And I do have a small lean towards the over. So I'm going to look at Gasol real quick. I imagine he's sort of a, defensive. Yeah, I mean, he's a defensive guy. So even with him in, I still like the over, maybe a little bit more of a reaction. I've got it at 214.5. It looks like there's some 213s and some 212s.5 out there. So small edge. I would say it's just, like kind of a typical play for me. That it's Toronto's actually playing slower as of late, but for some reason we're still leaning towards the over here. So look at OKC. OKC, no change over the last week. So, yeah, I don't know. I like the over. I'm not entirely sure why, other than the model's telling me to like the over.
All right. Yeah, there's no action for me on that game. Numbers are pretty much spot on for me, and I kind of just see how Toronto's playing now that they're kind of getting back healthy up against the Oklahoma City team, which has kind of been on fire over the past month, right?
Right.
Next game is Charlotte at Denver. This is an interesting one here because we have Paul Millsap already ruled out, and then two other starters in Murray and Harris for Denver being questionable. So I'm seeing a current line of plus 11 out there for Charlotte with an over-under of 209.5.
Yeah, so Denver's could be out of three very efficient starters. Three guys that are, three of the top 5-6 players on their team, right? Mm-hmm. I have Harris and Murray just marked in just, for now. And I'm still getting a line of, what is it on the board now? 12 and a half, 11. So I'm getting it at like 10, 9 or 10 with those guys both in. So it's looking to me like they're in, but maybe it's still a little bit overvalued. Charlotte's been better as of late. I have been riding these Charlotte unders a little bit, and I do shade that way a touch, but I'd like to see if these guys are going to play and whether or not I'm going to bet more on it or not, because I'll definitely like the under if those guys are out or even just one of them's out. I'm thinking I'm definitely going to like the under here. If I look at Murray, he's a +2 offensive player. Harris is slightly above average offense player. So I'm going to get probably at least a 2.5, 3-point edge on that under if I can get it.
Yeah, for me here, I've been riding Charlotte whenever they're close to, double-digit dogs. In this case, they are a double-digit dog. But I'll always see weird line movement again, in my opinion, because like last game they were playing, the line moved against me when I bet them, and I saw the same thing here. I bet them overnight when they're +10 because I still think that line is off. I mean, if everybody is, if Murray and Harris are playing, I got that line like 8.5, 9. But if they're out, that line's closer to 6 for me. So I'm playing that now. Just not a pure speculation, but if I play it as it is now, I got like a 1 to 2 point edge. But if they get ruled out, you're sitting there with a sizable edge. So put the bet in now before you get the injury news later in the day, and you could be sitting there with 4 points of value by the time you're all done with it.
Yeah, and at 10, like I said, I do have a small edge. I even see like a 12 hanging out there. I
don't know. It's sitting at 11. I see 11 juice the other way on it, and 11.5.
So moving. If those guys are marked out, Murray and Harris, let me just check real quick. Yeah, I'm seeing you're probably going to see like a 2.5 point swing, I think, with Murray being like a +2 and Harris being slightly above average. So you're probably going to see like a 2.5, 3-point swing towards my numbers. So if I have that around like 9 or 10, you're talking, like you said, like 6, 7, something like that.
Yep.
Maybe the market won't get all the way down there because people haven't been liking Charlotte much, but I think you might see an 8, 8.5 or something like that.
And it's one of those where if they get ruled in, I don't think the number jumps up because I think that number is assuming they're playing, right?
To me, it looks like they're going to – that's what the number is, especially with the total, because I'm matching on both, really. Like, I'm close to matching on both. There's maybe some unsureties there, but I'm close to matching on both. So if just one of those guys gets marked out, I'm probably going to play the under, but I'd also like the side. I just have a tendency to play the totals.
Gotcha.
The side.
Yeah. All right. Next game, we have Portland Trailblazers against the Houston Rockets. Houston's on a back-to-back. One thing to note is Russell Westbrook did not play last night, but will play tonight, so he should be rested and ready to go. The lines for this game currently are -8 for Houston and a total between 235 and 235 and a half. Do you see any value in those lines, Frank?
No, I actually have it on 8 and 235 and a half. So nothing there for me. It looks like it opened 236. It's kind of just hovering around. Westbrook's back. Houston's on a back-to-back. You might be able to pick something off if there's an injury somewhere, but nothing for me on this game. I'll probably sit this one out.
Okay. Yeah, the one thing for me is I'm going to be including Houston in a parlay today. Just playing at home with Russ back in there. Portland's just been one of the more underperforming teams of the year. On paper, they look good with Dame and CJ, but the rest of the roster is just so depleted from last year that the market still thinks it's the Portland of old, and clearly they're not. So, I don't want to mess with the spread here because Houston has been known for missing the cover by a point or two when the spread is in the high single digits. So I'd much rather just play the money line because I would not expect them to lose this game at home here.
Yeah, it's the bench too. Like it's the bench so bad for them. Tolliver and Simmons and all these guys, Gary Trent,
Yeah.
Little, like these guys all stink, and they're all getting 15 to 20 minutes a game, and they're not good. And Portland's down. They've got some injuries, but the bench is just so bad compared to just even bad benches aren't that bad. Like every single one on their bench stinks. So I think that's probably what's hurting them, and it's making CJ and Dom got to pick up the load, and they're just not able to produce that much. I don't think there's too much pressure on those guys.
Yeah, no, the one thing to note also be is that it's a look to see what the Russell Westbrook props are going to be in this game because he's fully rested here in the back-to-back, and Portland's second unit is absolutely atrocious. And I think Russ is going to be, matched up against them and could just absolutely just run him out of the gym possibly.
Yeah, and you know how he does. Yeah, he'll be all fired up coming back after his rest day.
Exactly. Yeah, especially they might just play hard in a little bit less minutes because he played a bunch last night because they actually lost to Memphis. So maybe a little bit less Harden and more Russ tonight. All right, next game we have the Dallas Mavericks on a back-to-back at the Sacramento Kings. Key injury note here is it's looking like Porzingis might be playing tonight. And then you got Bogdanovic for Sacramento is doubtful. He's one of their best shooters. So the line we have out there currently is Dallas -3 with over-under of around 224. What are your thoughts on those?
Yeah, not much here for me. I've got it at like 4 or 5, just depending. I don't know if Porzingis is going to get full minutes. I do lean towards the over. But again, I'm just there's a good chance. I would say there's a good chance I end up playing the over either way. Let me see if I can find out why. But it's hard to say with Porzingis. I mean, he's a good player on both sides. He's not as great as he once was, but he is a good player on both sides. So he's not adding a lot to the total for me. For the offensive value he adds, he also adds defensive value. But if I look at Sacramento over their last 2 games, they're playing as the fastest team in the NBA. I'm going to go back a few more games here.
It's the De'Aaron Fox effect there now that he's fully back.
The last 3 games, 12.8 seconds per possession over the last 3 games. I'm assuming he's been – I don't remember when he specifically came back.
He came back, I think, about three or 4 weeks ago, I think. But now that he's finally got all his wooden together.
Yeah, he's getting his stuff back. So over the last 4 games, 13 seconds per possession. I mean, that's absurdly fast. So I'm going to play the overs. Porzingis coming back, like you said. I even if I mark him getting like 20, 25 minutes, I still like the over. So I'm going to probably fire there. I'm just kind of waiting and seeing if anything comes out with him. But I do have a nice little over edge. I know this game hadn't really opened up in most places, so I was kind of waiting to see what number I could get. But I think I'm going to like the over either way.
Yeah, sounds good. The only play for me in this game is I took the Dallas spread overnight at -2. Even with it sitting out there at -3, I'd still be playing that. I think if Porzingis does indeed play as what we're expecting, the line's going to be close. The line's probably going to jump another point or two just because, people just don't necessarily realize that he's going to be playing. And once officially ruled in, you're going to see people probably betting on Dallas just because Dallas has become a little bit of a public popular team because you got Luka fever, right? So,
right.
And there aren't that many people out there, jumping on the Sacramento bandwagon to be betting. So you're gonna have a lot of money flowing in there. I'm assuming they're gonna tick the spread up just a little bit there. So I'd rather get in now at a number of 2 or 3 than end up seeing it at 4 or 5 possibly.
Yeah, and I do lean that way as well. I do lean that way with even Porzingis getting light minutes. If he gets full minutes, I would say the line should be probably like 4, 4.5, 5, somewhere in there.
Yeah, and the other thing is with Dallas, they're on the back-to-back. They played Golden State last night, and it was kind of a blowout. So you weren't necessarily seeing heavy minutes from all their starters. So I'm not really concerned about the back-to-back with Dallas's deep bench as well. So.
Yeah, and that typically lends itself to more points on teams on back-to-backs. The point values do typically go up, maybe a little more lackadaisical on defense, that type of stuff.
All right, and the last game of the day is the Orlando Magic at the Los Angeles Lakers. We have injuries for both Lakers and the Magic. For the Lakers, Rondo seems to be out, and AD's listed as a game-time decision. For Orlando, we got DJ Augustin listed as doubtful. Current spread out there is -9.5 for the Lakers with a total of 211.5.
Yeah, I've got it at 7.5 and 213, but again, it's so tough to be able to tell with the injuries. I'm not sure, with MCW's questionable rate and then DJ's doubtful, Rondo out. With Davis hanging out there, it's really not worth it to me to get excited. I have them marked out, and I've got the game at 7.5. If he were in, he's like a +5 or +6 player. So you're going to see that line jump up. I would say it looks like he's out. They're considering him out with – it's not opened everywhere, but at 9.5, I would expect that line maybe to be, 12.5 if Davis was in.
Yeah.
So right now it's looking like maybe they're expecting him to be out, but not a game that I'm going to get excited to get involved in any manner, considering, he's one of the more impactful players to a point total and a spread this year.
Yeah. So the only action for me in this game is I'm putting Lakers as a piece for the parlay here. But them playing at home, even without AD possibly here, I still like them over the matchup with the matchups against the Magic here. So like the two parlays I was playing today was Boston at home against Detroit, Miami at home against Spurs, and Lakers at home against the Magic. And you parlay those together, you get about +117. The other one is Houston at home against Portland, Boston at home against Detroit, and Lakers at home against Orlando, and that's about -114. So those two parlays there are kind of similar juice to what you'd see for a regular play, and most likely you're going to see 2 of those 3 games in each of those parlays probably win easily, and you probably have to sweat probably one of those, I would think.
Yeah, and I'm just looking now, and I had DJ marked in because he was questionable, but now I'm seeing doubtful.
Yeah, he's doubtful, correct, yes.
So if I mark him out, he's like a, 1.5, 2 point player there for them compared to what their bench is going to put out. So that gets me back from what I say 7.5 back up to 9.5. So that's about what I would expect. And then, like I said, if Davis is announced in, you're going to see that line shoot up a lot.
Yeah, it could. I think it's going to be about 12.5, 13 if Davis gets ruled in.
Yeah, I could even see more, to be honest. I could even see more.
It could be.
It wouldn't surprise me to see more, to be honest. I think that's where it'll be, just because he's probably not going to get full minutes or full run. But if it wouldn't surprise me to see like 14.
Yeah, and it's one of those where if you want to put a speculative bet on it, I wouldn't, be opposed to it, because if he's ruled out, I don't think that line moves that much. Maybe it drops down half a point, but in reality, the difference between 9.5 and 9 isn't big. But if he's ruled in, you now just gain 3.5 points of line value. But as we know, when these lines are usually there, and they're kind of pretty good in understanding what the likely outcome are for injuries, so that they're kind of telling us that he's not playing tonight.
Yeah, and you're losing a lot of ball handlers in this game. MCW's out, DJ's out. I know they have Fultz, but they're losing a lot of minutes for guys that can just handle the ball consistently too. So a lot of pace guys are going to be out for the Magic. So it's going to be. I imagine that. I don't look much at first half numbers and things like that, but I imagine that there may be sort of an adjustment period there for them with the guys they are missing and figuring out who's going to run the ball right up and down the court,
exactly.
At least for the minutes that Fultz isn't playing.
Yeah. Any final thoughts here on the slate today?
No, that's it. So what did I say? I've got Miami under, Toronto over, Chicago under, and Dallas over today.
All right. So for Frank, I'm Paulie, and this has been another edition of the Opening Line for LeadSportsBetting.com.